Welcome to the Darcy Wellness Show. My name is Jeff Darcy. I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist at the Darcy Wellness Clinic. And today with me in the studio is Dr. Margot Roman, who's an integrative veterinarian. Margot's been involved with many things. One of them is a video, Dr. Dumore, an integrative veterinary medicine, becomes mainstream veterinary care. Margot's clinic is the MASH Clinic, Main Street Animal Clinic. Main Street Animal Services of Hopkinton. Main Street Animal Services. It's 72 West Main Street in Hopkinton. And Margot, you've been very prolific here, and you've been involved in integrative medicine right from the beginning. You're an elder in the whole holistic veterinary community. How did you get started with integrating medicine integrating alternate medicine into your practice?
Well, actually, I think I was very lucky. In veterinary school, I had an opportunity to take the International Veterinary Acupuncture course. And it was the second year that this course was offered in the United States. It was 1975. So I was actually the first woman who took an acupuncture course for veterinary medicine.
So you've been using it a long time in your
practice. Long
yeah?
time.
So not just acupuncture, but also other
herbs and homeopathy, and now I do chiropractic too as well.
And you have
ozone therapy,
yeah.
And there's so many modalities that can really help your pet. And so when I started with the acupuncture, it began to open my mind a little bit,
yeah.
And make me realize that what I had learned in veterinary school was just a small amount of information, and there was so much more
right.
that I could do to give my clients and their pets other options so that they could take better care of their animal.
Yeah, so we have your little cat here with the acupuncture on one side and the regular physiology on the other. I was in Nanjing in 1980, and I did a short 2-week veterinary course, and it scared the living daylights out of me. We were treating horses and cows, and it was quite something, though. But it's a great way to use non-invasive, non-drug related medicine, basically.
It is, and the opportunity to do some of these other modalities may save your animal's life, but also be a lot more cost effective for
right.
the client, because they work with the animal's immune system, and they try to get the immune system to actually work for the animal. So the animal and you are working in tandem together to really make the animal get better.
That's great. So if we go to our first slide, and this shows that we have, actually there's a lot of dogs and cats in the US. We have 60 million dogs, 73 million cats. I mean, that's quite amazing. And there's, and most pet owners, that 1 in 3 are using some form of alternative medicine, and that 50% increase in the last year in herbal medicine, which is our topic today, herbal
mm-hmm.
medicine in veterinary care. So if we can go quickly to our next slide. So this is basically herbal medicine is a gentle, natural, non-toxic therapeutic approach. It's very good for helping with immune problems, chronic skin and ear allergies, digestive upsets, thyroid and adrenal disorders, seizures, gum and teeth. It goes on and on, Margot. I mean, in your practice, what kind of percentage would you say that you use herbal medicine, even though you have options, other natural options?
I use herbal medicine a lot because I feel like in the wild, an animal would choose to pick up these particular plants and different properties of the plants, and they know innately what they're going to need for themselves. And you often will see animals trying to graze or pick up, a particular plant. And I use them as a nutritional support, so I get the benefit of the energetic of the herb, as well as the benefit of that as a phytonutrient and
right.
a nutrient for the body. So it's doing two things. It's working with the animal's own immune system, giving it the pieces that it might need to help it recover. Because if nature can help it, why wouldn't you let nature try to help the animal?
That's right. Most people don't realize that these substances have been used by animals for probably millions of years. There's one instance I like of, there was an elephant that was tracked in Tanzania, and she was about to give birth, and 2 weeks before she gave birth, she veered off her regular routes and went hunting for one particular kind of a tree, found it in this little village, munched on it, and it actually helped to induce the birth. And they found that the locals found that this particular bush was used in local herbal medicine for the induction of birth. And there are many instances of animals using plants as anti-parasites or healing themselves through different conditions, maybe trial and error over millions of years, that may have come into our folk medicine just from the understanding of looking at animals and seeing what they're using, and then coming into the human herbal traditions.
Yeah, I mean, animals are so intelligent,
Yeah.
and for us to discount them because they are not humans is really unfair. Some of the instinctive things that any animal can do, and the more in the wild, the more instinctive they are. But you really do see them trying to care for themselves. And if an animal gets injured and they break a leg, they don't run to a veterinarian in a tree and say, "Fix my leg." They lay still, they lay quiet, they try to mend themselves before they go on. And so many of them do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived as a species.
Right.
They didn't need doctors there to take care of them every step of the way.
Well, even with my own patients, trying to get somebody to rest when they're injured is tough. I mean, it's a natural, instinctive thing to do for an animal, but we override it.
Right.
If we could go to our next slide, also within traditional Chinese medicine, there's a huge history of use of mainly in horses in the beginning, of using herbal medicines, and we move on to our next slide. That shows that for many thousands of years, 2,000 years certainly documented, more than 7,000 herbs have been used for the treatment of animals. And so you also, with your own horse, I remember, struggled and extended.
Yeah, my own horse, who lived 2.5 years after that, it was told that there was nothing you could do for this horse because he had cancer.
So conventional
medicine said there's nothing you can do.
We can't do anything.
You need to euthanize him immediately.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can do for him.
And then you took on your own mission.
And he lived 2.5 more years, jumping in horse shows and participating. And the university said, kill him.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you don't kill him. You add more things to try to keep his life.
What did you use?
I used a combination of pretty much what the Hoxie formula is. And then I added actually your power mushrooms. I used your power mushrooms. Did a lot of ozone therapy on him.
So tell us a little bit about ozone.
Well, ozone therapy is wonderful. It is probably the most important adjunct that I've added to my practice in the last 8 or 9 years. What it is we take pure surgical oxygen and we bubble it through an ozone generator.
So just like in a diver's, decompression
that's oxygen therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, so when we use a hyperbaric chamber, we increase oxygen tension in the body. So just backing up of why you need oxygen in your body is that you need it for cells to function. When you have inflammation and when you have swelling and when you have bruising and when you have infection and when you have cancer, you have higher amounts of CO2 that build up in your tissue. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea of getting circulation into an area to bring in new cells.
So you would use acupuncture, you would use ozone, and everything to stimulate circulation.
Try to stimulate circulation and put higher. So when you give the ozone, it's in an O3 state. And when it hits body temperature, and we deliver it subcutaneously, you are basically filling, the capillaries and the red cells are filling up with oxygen.
Do you often use it in conjunction with other
therapies? I do it a lot in conjunction with my acupuncture. My thought is that if I can potentiate the energy of the body by giving it oxygen, that's too simple.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't everybody want to make tissue more oxygenated? And they know now that the CO2 levels in the environment are so much higher than they were 50 years ago. And even looking at Al Gore's movie, looking at that, so we know our bodies are struggling trying to get more oxygen into it. So if you can give oxygen to the tissue and then you ask the tissue to respond, you can, I think, potentiate your homeopathy, potentiate your acupuncture, your herbs, everything, because your body's got more oxygen on board.
Speaking to that point of the energy, if we could go to our next slide, that plants have the biochemistry, but they also have energy. This is a slide of a Kirlian photograph showing charged up areas, and we can see the electron streams being given off by the leaf. And the interesting thing about this particular leaf is the top has been cut off, where you see that black bit. The leaf's been cut off, but there's still this phantom limb, this energy phantom limb still projecting out of that plant. So if we were to eat that plant, we would get the phytonutrients, but we would also get the energy from that plant. And in traditional Chinese medicine, it's the energy that will also that can be used towards healing of certain plants, and as well as the phytonutrients. And then onto the next slide. you know, I mean, cancer, you know, it's amazing. This one study shows 47% of all cats and dogs die of cancer in the country. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal. And you know, surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation are the conventional treatment modalities, and they're expensive modalities. You can get up to $7,000 and beyond dollars per treatment. And that herbal supplements, along with conventional care, can increase the effectiveness of those modalities. So in your own practice, how do you approach cancer in herbal medicine?
Very sadly, cancer is affecting so many animals, and it's devastating.
Is it more than when you first kicked off in practice?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, I have all these veterinarians say, well, they are not living longer. They are getting more cancer, and I see animals at 2, 3 years old getting terminal cancer and dying. It's not the same as it was 30 years ago when I started practicing. So it's gone up so high, and it's so scary. And what I find is these animals that go for conventional chemotherapy, radiation, amputation, surgery, I don't think get a lot more time with most of the cancers than we can afford. We can give them with the integrative approach.
Yeah.
The integrative approach is really allowing the immune system to do its own battle.
Right, right.
And it's giving the body its tools so that it can say, okay, I don't want you coming into my lungs.
Right.
I'm going to strengthen my lungs. I'm going to strengthen my liver. So these organ systems have some resilience.
So empowering their own systems
exactly.
to help fight.
And it doesn't always work. It doesn't, but conventional doesn't work a lot.
Yeah.
So when they do get a little bit of extension on their life of the animal, they feel successful. But
so how often in your practice say that somebody can't afford the conventional treatments?
A lot of people, and in this economy, a lot of people can't afford it.
So at least they have then an option of some form of care.
I totally, and some of these animals can go for years when they were told that they had weeks to live, and they can go for years. And each animal is an individual, and you don't know how they're going to respond, and you don't know where their vital forces or their chi is left to help maneuver through their immune system.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is to build up that immune system as strong as we can, and then ask it to respond.
If we could take a look at the next slide, this is interesting because this shows that there are, you know, more than 10,000 independent research papers now available on polysaccharide immune modulators, basically ways to boost up the immune system for and help with cancer treatment. And these papers are coming from National Institute of Health, Harvard University, Japanese Cancer Health Society, UK, 10,000 independent research papers. The majority of them positive, showing that, for instance, mushrooms can boost the immune system in a number of different ways. So why aren't herbal supplements being more widely used in cancer treatment in the conventional sense?
I think people are afraid to step out of the box.
Yeah.
You know, when you've been trained as a doctor to only do a certain protocol, and that protocol has got their double-blind studies.
Their seal of approval.
And the seal of approval, and the drug companies, of course, are paying for those seals of approval. So there's a little bit of, you know, handing each other the money. And so that part is that I worry about.
So how did you step out of that box? What
it's very hard, and it's still very hard because you know, you've got the drug companies and the veterinary school, you know, saying no, we want to see double-blind studies.
This was part of your theme about the video that you made, Dr. Dumore video. Yeah. Where can people see this video?
Well, we have the website, which is the www.drdomore.org, and instead of Dr. Doolittle, it's Dr. Do More. So we're trying to get people to sort of be empowered to ask the questions at their veterinary practice, to ask them if there's anything else that they can do, because it will not be offered.
And this is really a great video. I would really recommend, if you're out there, to look up drdumore.com and really check drdumore.org and really check out the video, because it's extremely empowering.
Well, we've interviewed over 850 hours of veterinarians and doctors and physicians from all over the world. We went to China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, even Tibet, and we got all this footage, and we put it down into this 34-minute piece now that we have, and it's to truly empower people to know that they have options and choices and other ways of doing things, because it's not going to be offered in a conventional veterinary practice.
So you stepped out of this box, and basically now at your clinic, you are fully integrated with all kinds of natural ways of helping the animal help themselves. So at
MASH,
in
MASH we
Hopkinton.
try. I mean, there are more things that I wish I knew more of and could do. And we have a holistic healthcare center where we have chiropractors and craniosacral in the lower level, other modalities too, and then upstairs we have the acupuncture and conventional surgery as well.
What kind of percentage do you think you treat of cancer?
It's too high. It's very depressing. And I get a lot of referrals from other veterinarians that when people do say, well, what else, or they've gotten frustrated with the way that they've been the animal's health has been going, and then they come to me, but sometimes they come to me after they've exhausted every little penny they have and everything that they have, and they're coming to say, well, what can you do? And it's like, I wish I could have gotten you 3 months ago. Then maybe I could have worked with this dog better because there was more energy there versus everything that's been done to the animal.
If we could see the next slide, the interesting thing too is that cancer, that can be treated. That nature has a pharmacy. It's always trying to combat viruses and bacteria and control, cell growth spinning out of control within the environment constantly right now, in the sea of green around us. This is constantly happening. This has been happening for billions of years, and these are compounds that can be used very successfully inside our bodies and also inside animals' bodies. If we could go to the next slide, that certain breeds have, like Bernese Mountain Dog. I gave a talk at the BU, the Bernese Mountain Dog University they have there. I was surprised to find that, that they have very short-lived breed. 7 years is an average life for Bernese Mountain Dog.
It's really sad. And years ago,
there's such a susceptibility in some breeds.
Well, first of all, when they came over to this country, I think there were very few to take as a starting pool genetically. And then with interbreeding and everything else, the same thing with golden retrievers. I think golden retrievers are actually worse. And golden retrievers are there's so many people have golden retrievers, but 64% of them are getting cancer.
Wow.
So
is there anything that can be done preventative? If you have a pet that is susceptible.
And what I do, especially with all my breeds, but I do not over-vaccinate. Vaccinations are negative to the body. So
just be overloaded at the same time, multiple vaccinations at the same time.
Many puppies will get a series at 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, or 9 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks.
And the mechanism is that will
keep them from getting these diseases. Yeah. Well, we don't do that in our practice. Yeah. We give them one plain distemper, one plain parvo, and we separate them, and we get them older.
They have a chance to recover and get stronger, and then get the next one.
They test their antibody levels through titers. Yeah. And knock on wood, we have never had an outbreak of parvo or distemper, which is what my conventional colleagues are fearing, that we're going to have these outbreaks. Yeah. And I don't find that the Lyme's vaccines protect the animal. So I have dogs that come in that are on Frontline, which is these on topical pesticides, Frontline and Vandix and Spot, ProSpot, and all these things that you're putting on your animal, and they still get Lyme's disease. They still get anaplasmosis. They still get different parasite related diseases. So do I feel like I'm protecting them by giving them all these shots and vaccinating them? Absolutely not.
So cutting back on the shots, and anything else that you suggest preventatively?
What I say is cut back on the vaccines, and the key to everything is nutrition. Nutrition is you are what you eat. You are what you don't excrete.
So when you look at you are what you don't excrete. So the idea that with humans, that if you take a certain amount, we can prove you take Okinawans get 9 to 12 portions of fruits and vegetables. It's one of the factors that they have the greatest longevity in the world. 80% less estrogen receptive cancers, 80% less heart disease. So what would the equivalent be in the animal realm? What kind of diet do you recommend in the animal realm?
I like a lot of greens in the diet, and I like to have fresh vegetables.
Because naturally in the wild,
my dogs will graze. They eat grasses and things like that when they're walking along. And then when they kill an animal, they eat the whole intestines with all the fiber and the greens and the herbs that particular rabbit has been munching on all day. Right. And then they eat the meat live. I mean, they eat it raw. They eat it fresh. They don't cook it.
Nobody's cooking it.
You don't see the dog out there roasting the rabbit. They eat it as live and viable as they can.
So how can you do that conveniently in a home environment?
Well, there are at least 120 companies that make raw foods now. for pets.
So you can have
and
it delivered.
You can have it delivered, but they have quite a few wonderful stores around the Boston area and New England. Especially for pets, and the barn, the animal barn, the pet barn in Worcester. There's a lot of places now that now carry all these.
So you can get the raw meat and then
can,
also phytonutrients?
Phytonutrients, yeah, you can just mix in greens and
right.
like your green powder too, is to mix that in, because that gives you all, you don't have to go chopping everything up. It's all prepared in a powder,
right. So
and you just mix it all
in the greens, for instance, in broccoli there's sulforaphane, major anti-cancer ingredient. We have, lysine in tomatoes, you have allicin in garlic. A great deal of plants have these wonderful anti-cancer compounds and fantastic antioxidants in them. So you would suggest the raw meat diet?
Raw meat diets with fresh vegetables, with some fruits, and it's better to puree everything into smaller particles, because if you give your dog a carrot to eat, you'll see carrot coming out the other end,
right,
because they can't break down the cell wall.
Right.
So making something that's balanced, and there's so many wonderful books out now on raw diet and natural diets and everything, that you can make your own food and be very successful at raising a very healthy animal.
If we could go to our next slide, and we're going to go through a couple of these slides quite quickly. So that's on the Bernese Mountain Dog, the mortality. Thank you. So there's a classic herbal formula for the treatment of cancer that is an American formula that has its origins from a veterinarian. Hox's grandfather was a veterinarian, and supposedly this horse had cancer and was put out to pasture and had cured himself by eating certain types of grasses that were available in the field. And the veterinarian followed him around, noticed what he was eating, and then started prescribing it to other animals. And eventually, 3 generations down the line, Harry Hoxsey in 1950 had a cancer treatment hospital that was seeing 50,000 patients a year and getting phenomenal results. That formula is still alive and well in the herbal realm and is used to help animals and humans to fight cancer. We go quickly to our next slide, because I'd like to give a few examples of things that can be done. Shiitake, maitake, and reishi are 3 remarkable medicinal mushrooms that have been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. These 3 mushrooms produced 4 extracts that are in the top 10 of cancer-fighting drugs right now in Japan. So there's an enormous amount of research going into these anti-cancer compounds of many different mushrooms. These are 3 of the main ones. And just go on quickly to the next slide. We spoke earlier about the phytonutrients from green. So the idea is, how do you get your pet to take some phytonutrients without the fiber and without the gas? So this is a concentrated 20-to-1 mixture of many different types of greens that provide, chlorophyll and the phytonutrients that they need. And on to the next slide quickly. So the herbal medicine in the world today is interesting that 80% of the world's population is using herbal medicine, and that 75% of all drugs, pharmaceuticals, come originally from folk medicine. 1 in 3 in the US is using it. 70 to 80% of German doctors are now prescribing it. China is 60% of the population relies on traditional Chinese herbs for their health care, and in Japan it's 80 to 90%. I saw a figure recently of 90% MDs in Japan now using herbal medicine. So, Margot, is there a trend that you're seeing in veterinary medicine that vets are becoming more amenable to using herbal medicine and acupuncture?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that the tide is beginning to go into the favor of being integrative in your practice. There are companies that are well-known companies that are now taking on products that have milk thistle in them, knowing that really helps detox the liver. And then there are products that are coming out to support kidney weakness, and they're using Rehmannia and other herbs that will help the kidney and the bladder and everything else. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming into the mainstream shelf for conventional veterinarians.
Right.
But unless they get it sold to them by a drug company, they don't know about it. They don't know about it.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is to inspire clients to keep asking and bringing material to their veterinary practice and allowing that veterinarian to say, oh, well, that sounds like that's a possibility, and giving them the information so that they can say, well, why not? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they can read the ingredients and not see any side effects, and there are, of course, sites where they can look at any kind of minuscule side effects that there are compared to the drugs, you know, that you're going to give them.
That's right. You know, I don't know what it would be in the equivalent in the animal realm, but I do know that, you know, there are some serious side effects of pharmaceuticals. There are 120,000 deaths every year due to appropriately prescribed pharmaceuticals, 2.1 million serious injuries due to appropriately prescribed in the human realm. That must be true, and you must see that.
Well,
in
there
the
is,
animal realm too.
and sadly, the drug companies don't stand behind those reactions. If you have a reaction to a pharmaceutical, it is so hard to get one of the big companies to stand behind it. They get out of it. They don't want to support that, but they're there in a second to condemn one herbal product that might have one reaction, but the rest of you have a piece of paper that tells you all the side effects and all the, including death, that happens with this drug. And if one little minor thing happens to an herb, they're down everyone's throat to try to say, oh, look, you know.
If we could go to our next slide. I wanted to wick through these, you know, quite quickly, these slides. You know, there's some drug discoveries originally of course, from herbs. You know, we know that 74% come from there. But Pacific Yew produced Taxol, Rosy Periwinkle produced Vinblastin, Vincristin, Foxglove produced Digitalis, Meadowsweet Aspirin, on and on. And then on to our next slide, the idea that, you know, there are these chemicals or phytonutrients in plants that are majorly anti-cancer. One of them is sulforaphane in broccoli, you know, and it's not the regular broccoli sprout, but it's rather the 7 to 10 day old sprout itself that has 500 parts per million of sulforaphane. So these can be added into the feed. And onto our next slide, I wanted to talk just quickly about the prevalence of Lyme. That, you know, we're now seeing since 1990 up to 2008. We can see the in red is Massachusetts. So there's a lot more Lyme going on. And I wanted to ask you what you thought. And our next slide to follow that up is that we can see the increase of Lyme is in the Northeast, and that there's a 109% increase in 2006. So in just winding up, then Dr. Roman from MASH Animal Clinic in Hopkinton, just to wind up, your impression of Lyme. I mean,
Lyme is epidemic.
Prevalence? Yeah.
It is. I mean, between cancer and Lyme's, you could keep yourself busy as a veterinarian. And I don't think that the pesticides that we use are protecting animals. That's not working. So,
what kind of increase is it? Has it been a significant increase?
Pretty much, I'd say about 80% of my clients' animals are positive for Lyme's.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're positive, and many of them, you know, we just keep their immune system stronger, and they do fine. Yeah. And then they get stressed out, and then it comes and it bothers them. Right. So if you can keep them 2 steps ahead of it. Yeah. And what do we do to prevent it? I mean, that's. I got guinea hens, and they're eating, and I saw like a 90% decrease in my property from guinea hens. Yeah. Although my neighbors don't like them.
There's some great herbal approaches to that, but we'll have to leave that to another time. I also wanted to let people know out there that you're an author of a book, Integrating Complementary Medicine into Veterinary Practice. You're one of the co-authors of that book. Dr. Margot Roman of MASH Animal Clinic in Hopkinton. I want to thank you very much for joining me in the studio today. My name is Jeff Darcy at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, and I wanted to thank you very much for joining us and listening to this show.